Movies on fire. Movies on fire.
Oh my god. I gotta tell you, this popcorn is almost as good as a Disney cruise.
I would absolutely agree. Or maybe a Sandals Beach Resort.
Or maybe a Sandals Beach Resort, yeah. You know, viewers, listeners, I apologize. We just saw Companion earlier this week. And we had not one, not two, but 3 commercials for various cruise lines and vacations.
And that's just the consecutive ones. I think we had another 3 or 4 after that, just that they weren't back to back.
Yeah, I'm really getting the vibe that I screwed up this year. I should have gone to the beach. I should have taken some more time off. And maybe, just maybe, I should go with my companion.
Ah, that's an exceptional idea. Nothing bad ever happens on a beach.
I mean, say you have one of those things, right? You have a Wi-Fi, I believe.
Yeah, no, I rent her, and then and we keep her in the basement when she's not used.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that must be why we never record down there. Fair enough.
Yeah, of course. So,
yeah. So as far as having a wife versus having a robot, I mean, would you say those things would probably be pretty different?
I think they're essentially identical. That functionally, when you purchase a robot, you've essentially just purchased a wife.
Oh my! So like, what you're telling me is that the toaster oven I have at home are we in a union now?
Functionally identical, yeah.
Oh my god! I can't wait to tell my parents about this, but
I know they'll be thrilled. So.
Yeah, but that would be the subject of Companion, and I gotta tell you, I think I like this movie.
I think it is good. Yeah, it was fun.
I mean, as far as like a really craftsman-like film to come out, it was just like you said, 7 out of 10. I'm going to
good.
stand out in bold, bloody defiance of you. And I'm going to say 7.5 out of 10, sir.
I could be convinced. It is a very solid movie. It has some thematic elements. It's a very solidly paced and plotted. Good cinematography. Solid cast as well. They do a very good job. And
I mean, I'm going to be that one asshole and say it wasn't color graded correctly. I wanted to have the pearl color grading. It needed to be more saturated.
It really just didn't get me in the sexy mood.
There's so much of don't know what to do. I'm the audience. I'm right.
Yeah. The only piece I will say I did think was a bit subpar was the music, just because it was barely there. But the majority of it I thought was very good. It's nothing I haven't seen before. It's not some sort of masterpiece you need to run out and see, but it is a very enjoyable use of your time. It was a solid movie.
Yeah, I recall that this was playing in IMAX screenings.
It was.
Look, I love this movie. I thought it was a really good time. I can't recommend you go see this in IMAX. Now something like the Wolfman, that was really cool. And this isn't a Wolfman review. That came out, I want to say January 17th. It was doing a lot of things acoustically, and it just made such terrific use of that Steadicam XYZ axis. I just think that movie had a lot more moving parts. So I get wanting to go see that in IMAX. Whereas look, Zach, what was the theater that we went to again?
It's called The Picture Show. It's a small local theater. So very, very budget, very kind of low tech, solid, but nothing exceptional. And I think that's a very good setting. It's a classic theater experience.
You said very budget. I feel like that's exactly how I would describe the mozzarella sticks that I ordered there.
That sounds correct. They did not look particularly enticing.
They sure were good. They were just, perfect. A budget stick for a budget theater for a budget movie. Speaking of which, this was only about $10 million, right?
Yes, according to the fount of knowledge that is Wikipedia, $10 million, which honestly is impressive. Yeah. I thought this would cost more, just looking at it.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I can't possibly get angry at this movie is because, you know what, how many movies come out that cost in excess of $100 million.
Right, yeah.
Never make their money back and like bankrupt a studio in the process. You know, this isn't Companion.
No, and we saw that the box office already has returned about 24 million as of the time of recording, and that's almost certainly a profit. Which is, again, this feels like kind of a throwback experience where you go back, you go to a theater, you watch a good movie, and you enjoy it. It's nothing exceptional, but it's good. And that's also a throwback in the way it was made. Fairly low budget. It's fairly low, like, set design. It's not a particularly ambitious movie from that perspective. It basically just takes place within one house and the immediate surrounding area. But it gets the most out of those.
Yeah, like this is very utilitarian. They do a really fantastic job, and we'll talk about this more once we get into spoilers about having all these really nice setups and payoffs. And, you know, when you talk about just really utilizing that one location, this movie did a terrific job of that. I mean, I feel like the set design here really worked. I mean, there's one specific scene that stands out to me with a candlelit dinner that I thought was very nice. And, you know, look, for lack of better words, it just works.
It just works.
It just works.
And yeah, I would not have told you that it took place in so few locations. It's essentially 3. There's the forest, there's the house, and then there's the beach near the house, essentially, with a little bit of flashback scenes around it. But it's essentially just 3 main locations that the majority of the movie takes place in. I wouldn't have guessed that when I was walking out of the theater. It feels more expansive. They did a very good job hiding, essentially, a lot of the low production budget.
Yeah, now, that being said, this movie was supposed to take place in New York. And it was shot on location in the Hudson Valley. So I really do have to give this movie credit for being filmed in New York. In anticipation of Final Destination Bloodlines, I have been rewatching those films. And I gotta tell you, Final Destination 1, set in New York, filmed in Vancouver, and it's not even funny. The whole time I'm watching it, it's even more obvious in number 2, where I'm like, guys, this is just the Pacific Northwest. This is just Vancouver. This is not New York. That's a New York cop. This is not New York.
And you're somebody who's actually spent some time in New York, so you would actually know.
Yeah. I mean, look, upstate, it has a very distinctive flavor. It is not the Pacific Northwest. You cannot pass the two off. I mean, it's hilarious how many states Vancouver has been. Like, I don't know if you ever saw Alien vs. Predator Requiem, but no, that's a movie that's supposed to take place here in Colorado Springs.
Oh, no.
And you watch it and you're like, no, this is just Vancouver.
Was it too expensive to film in the West? Like, that stuns me that you couldn't go to, like, Wyoming.
Yeah, it really blows my mind. But major props to these guys for actually filming on location.
Yeah, and I have not spent time in New York. I've been in New York only in passing. But it still looks beautiful as well. Yeah. They just do a good job from the perspective of someone who doesn't know anything about that.
Yeah, I mean,
of looking good.
Like, dude, from the technical aspect, I mean, this is just, it's a really gorgeous movie. I mean, I was joking earlier about the color grading. I guess, you know, Zach, when we walked out of it, I thought maybe had they played with that a little bit more, like had the beginning almost look something more like Pearl or like the Wizard of Oz, and slowly kind of gone or reverted back to like a more neutral palette.
Agreed.
That maybe could have distinguished some things with the characters, but like I feel like that's such an armchair movie criticism. I can let that go.
A lot of the problems I have with this movie also do feel kind of like that, where it's pieces where I'm not saying this is terrible, I'm saying they could have done more. But with the budget, I'm willing to forgive that because they didn't have a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, look, as far as the cast goes, we have Sophie Thatcher putting in a performance as Iris, the unassuming titular companion.
Yes, and she does a fantastic
of
job.
Jack Quaid. And she does. I mean, she's been on a hot roll lately. She's been in a couple of recent releases. I think I saw her most recently in the A24 release of Heretic, where she played a Mormon like missionary. And she was lovely in that film. She's lovely in this movie. I mean, Zach, what did you think about Jack Quaid in this movie?
Yeah, so my actual real-life companion loves Scream. And I could not stop thinking of his Scream 5 character because it is the same character. He is an incel.
Yes.
And he is exactly what you would expect from that. I will say Jack Quaid is very well cast in these roles, in this one. He plays it exceptionally well. And despite the fact that he is definitely like over average attractiveness, over average build, like he's definitely not an average person. For some reason, when my brain looks at him, it thinks generic default white guy, like average white guy. And he is just perfect for that sort of role.
Yeah, he really nails it. I mean, without getting too much into the spoiler section, he is such a wiener in this movie. He's such a massive dork. And I really got to give the script kudos for that. And rounding out the cast, we have Lucas Gage as Patrick, Megan Surrey as Kat, and Harvey Guillén as Eli, whom a lot of people might know from What We Do in the Shadows as Guillermo. He's probably my... he may have been the standout performance in this movie for me, aside from Sophie Thatcher.
Agreed.
And Rupert Friend as Sergey.
Yes, Sergey.
Ah,
My
Sergey.
favorite character.
Let's go bowling. Let's go bowling. Yes. He's in a very dirty business. Da. And folks, we are about to launch into the spoiler section. Ooh, spoilers. Ooh. So, if you have not seen Companion, now is your time
Yes, you must leave now.
to leave now. So
There is no way to get this innocence back.
no. All right, so Zach, let's break it down.
All right. So Companion is a beautiful love story of a young couple who are very much in love. Josh, who is our Jack Quaid type character, and Iris, who is a perfectly normal woman, an extremely normal level of devoted to her boyfriend. Our plot opens on this perfect couple as they head to a small cabin very deep in the woods of New York to meet up with their friends. Kat, who is a young woman who seems very talkative with Josh and loathes Iris for reasons utterly unknown. Her totally normal boyfriend, Sergey, wealthy Russian cabin owner and Stalin enthusiast. And Patrick and Eli, another perfect couple, but this time they're gay. They all have a delightful night together, drinking and chatting about their various perfect relationships. The next morning, Josh abandons Iris to spend time with Kat, and while Iris is at the beautiful lake beach, Sergey decides that no means yes. Iris chides him for this by severing his carotid artery, creating an unexpected swerve in the weekend. Except, it was in fact expected. Iris is, to use Jack Quaid's word, a literal fuckbot.
Oh my.
An android companion for Josh, who was molded to be more murdery and used to kill Sergey by Josh and Kat. Iris escapes her bondage to Josh, she flees into the woods, and we learn that Eli and Patrick are here solely to provide the gayest alibi possible for Kat and Josh, who want the millions of dollars in presumed hush money sitting under the gun in Sergey's safe. Turns out Patrick is also a fuckbot. The group is somehow completely fine with all of these developments, and sets off into the woods with Sergey's gun to hunt down Iris. On the way, Patrick and Eli profess undying love despite their species difference, and hunting a robot as a robot doesn't set off a major existential crisis for Patrick until Iris has to fight her way out, shooting Eli and rendering their eternal love somewhat less eternal. This is made even shorter when Josh resets Patrick to factory settings, mods him into a Twinkie Terminator, and sets him after Iris. One nice dinner, one dead cop, and one unfortunate but hilarious mishap in which your killbot stabs your murder partner later, Iris is back under Josh's control and shoots herself in the head, ending the movie. Except that when the robot company comes to pick her up, we learn that she's been recording everything. So our Terminator deploys once more but cannot finish the job. Iris gains full sentience and uses this to break up with Josh, lodging a corkscrew into his brain, giving the man one last pity screw before the end. The movie ends with our newly minted second killbot unleashed upon the world, now with free will to wear whatever she chooses, go wherever she chooses, and kill whomever she chooses.
Hot. So hot.
It is steamy. It's a perfect Valentine's Day
Oh,
movie.
yeah. I mean, this would be a wonderful date, I think.
I agree. If your significant other likes horror movies, this is actually a great date.
Yeah, and, Zach, I don't think it's a secret on the show that, you have enjoyed horror movies, but sci-fi is your bag.
Correct, yes.
And, dude, what did you think about this as a sci-fi movie?
Yeah, I love that it is a very... They don't draw attention to the concept as much as I expected going into it, which I actually quite liked. That the characters here live in a world where just having a companion robot is a normal thing. That it isn't seen as something particularly noteworthy. This isn't the first companion. This isn't a new concept. This is something they've already lived in for a while. They've already examined this concept for themselves.
That's even a brilliant plot point towards the end,
Right.
where I think it's one of the technicians who comes out to the house is like, hey, you look familiar, when he's looking at, Patrick, the Terminator robot, because he's like, He's like the iPhone X to whatever iPhone we're
yeah.
on now.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, he's pretending to be a human essentially, and the guy takes a bit to register that this is in fact an older companion robot. And I like that. That's one of my favorite pieces of the sci-fi, that it doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself. Despite the fact that this is a concept, obviously we've seen this before many times. You can obviously date it back to, say, the original Blade Runner. There's tons of concepts about robot sex buddies that date back to early sci-fi and the Golden Age or even earlier. And you can even look at more modern stuff. Blade Runner 2049, for instance, is a very similar subplot with Joy that I do think is better.
I mean, personally, I really enjoyed Westworld for what it was. I can acknowledge that show kind of sine waves and like quality throughout the seasons. Some were better than others. But I do kind of have to give this movie kudos because it's addressing a lot of the same topics that Westworld did over the length of what would be one episode of that show.
This actually reminds me a lot of the 1973 Westworld movie, where
I can see that.
Where this has a setup that is very much built around a sort of fantasy weekend that has the rug pulled out from under it, and then we have the final kind of chase scene Terminator type movie in the back half, which is exactly how Westworld, the 70s Westworld, is structured. I want to say 73, but it might be a different year. But it's a very similar structure, except that our Terminator isn't, or our chased character is also a robot, which is not the case in that movie.
Yeah, and that was one of the interesting parts about this movie, at least to me. Well, I don't think we are, fully qualified to talk about the full extent of women's liberation.
What do you mean two men aren't the people to talk about that, Michael?
I don't know, Zach. I don't know. I can't appreciate some of the implications of these things that they're bringing up because, if you have one of these, it can't consent and yet it's still sentient. It's just, it's wrong to have one of these, basically.
It's too sentient, right, for its own good. But the question then is, like, how sentient is it? Because we see from the very beginning of the film that these are programmed to not notice that they're robots. Like, it does come as a shock, despite the fact that nobody's really hiding it. Kat mentions a couple times when they're debating her kind of companion relationship with Sergey, that like, oh, well, like, who am I talking to? And Josh mentions straight up, like, oh yeah, you can't lie to me, even if you wanted to. But Iris never notices. So the question of, like, if sentience requires self-awareness, these robots aren't self-aware until Iris is, like, sat down by Josh and told, oh yeah, you're a robot. And you're a robot that exists solely to please me. Well, not solely Josh, actually. We learn that she is a rental.
Yeah. Oh, God. And I feel like that's the most pathetic part about Jack Quaid's character.
If you have to rent your sex bot.
Oh, that's low. That's low.
Yeah, that is the most incel thing you could be.
I mean, it's like, yeah, nobody wants to rent a fleshlight. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's gross. There are many other things that this man could have done, and yet he chose the most pathetic option from the entire drop-down menu.
And control is definitely the order theme of the day, right? That ability of someone to control, because he actually doesn't have a lot of control. He has complete control over Iris, but he has no control over anything else in his life. And it's pretty instantaneous once this guy starts his plot to use his hacked, jailbroken sex bot to kill Sergey.
He's utterly incompetent. He doesn't even think.
No chance they're getting out of this.
He doesn't even acknowledge that there might be fraud prevention.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're doing. In fact, I think that's one of the touches that I did love in the performance, is because, like, when Jack Quaid is explaining, I'm sorry, the character's name is Josh, but he's Jack Quaid.
It's Jack
They're
Quaid.
just one in the other, okay? Yeah. But like,
which goes to show how good his performance is.
Yeah, and it was just, it was a weird moment because while I was watching him try and give this bullshit explanation for why the robot shot itself, I'm like, I can't, like, this is bad acting that I'm watching, and it's almost taking me out of the movie, but it sucked me right back in when the two technicians got in the truck and they're like, oh yeah, he modded it. That's exactly what happened.
They're instantly just like, yeah, this guy's a dumbass. Like, yeah. And it's clear as well, like, his plan is so completely poorly thought out that he has, like, no control over what's going on. And constantly things are going wrong. Like, at one point, Kat, who is his co-conspirator, despite having, like, no close relationship with her, gets stabbed by Patrick just because he's like, go stop her, Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
But he forgets he's turned the aggression up to 1 million.
Patrick's aggression to 100%. And, look, disaster ensues. In fact, actually, that's one of the things that I think the script does so masterfully in this film, is that they have all these little setups and they have these wonderful payoffs. Whether that's, I mean, it's just these little rules that they set up and that they adhere to throughout the movie, and they let the consequences happen as a result of those rules. Whether that's, they do a really funny trick where it turns out Iris can change her language when she gets his phone. And because she cannot lie, they have this wonderful scene where she's approached by a police officer who wants to know more about what's going on. And this was nice for me because I'm kind of fluent in German, and getting to listen to her speak in German, just the complete truth of what was going on. I thought that was hilarious. And again, they follow that through to the point where when Patrick is threatening her in the third act, she has no choice but to tell him that Eli Guillermo loved him. And I just thought, I don't know, man. It was just a really cool plot device.
And once again, it gets into that central theme of control, because Josh's cell phone essentially has control over her, and more control than normal. He sees some of that control from the company by modding her. So literally the core kind of MacGuffin that they're all looking for is the control device for Iris. It's the power over her, because she has it for part of the movie after she steals it from Josh. They're trying to get it back because they can't have this bot who now knows that she's a robot and has murdered somebody on their behalf and knows that. So they can't have her getting out of it. So they need to deal with that control. So she's able to turn up her intelligence, for instance, give an exceptional reference to a romantic painting of exploring the woods, looking out for her own determination. And then in the end, of course, that control is taken away from her as she loses control in the plot when she's retaken by Josh and the Terminator. So it's not exceptionally deep, but it is extremely well woven through the script that theme of control is present everywhere.
Yeah, and again, the fact that they were able to cover so much ground in 90 minutes, I feel like that was just a really nice relief to me, because...
Yeah, it's a very breezy watch.
I mean, Zach, how many movies do you sit down to watch these days, and you look at the runtime, and it's 2.5 hours?
Yeah, sci-fi especially the conceptual sci-fi that admittedly I love, is very prone to that, where you sit down and it's 2.5 hours and you leave the theater and you're like, this should have been 45 minutes shorter. Like, it was not smart enough to fill all that time. And I think this understands that its premise is good, but it's not saying anything we haven't ever seen before. But as a result, the quick 95 minutes is perfect. It explores that theme well, but doesn't overstay its welcome to the point where it starts to get thin. It pretty much lands it.
I mean, if we could interrogate this a little bit more, you and I are deficient in one subset of movies. Hallmark originals.
This is true.
We do not watch a lot of romantic comedies, and I think it's interesting that the marketing for this movie almost bills it as something similar to The Notebook. I mean, granted, they have one poster that's just very obvious, where it's Iris with her robot eyes going into her skull. Which, it's like a horror movie, but the marketing for this is very glittery. It's got the Barbie sheen to it. It's very pink, and I do think that is a interesting subversion of a lot of the tropes that we do see associated with maybe those Hallmark originals.
Yeah, I would agree, and it subverts them in a very capable way. Again, the themes we see are also reinforced very heavily by the visuals, where, for instance, they literally tie her up, literally bind her in the early parts of the film, and her escaping that physical bondage of literally the chair binding is also is the point where she frees herself metaphorically from Josh's control for the first time. And then they're trading it off, so different people are in literal bondage for parts of the movie and different people are not. There's a point where she is trying to activate Josh's car to drive away, and we learn how little control she really has because she is not an authorized user on this car. Josh is ultimately able to report it stolen, and they have to play with her voice in a very clever way that's, again, established extremely well, to mention what you're going over, that they have to play with her voice timbre and literally change her person, change her communication.
Yeah, she has to assume his identity to drive the car.
And yes, and lose her own. Literally subvert herself, succumb hers under his, which is particularly clever, I think. And also just as plot-wise clever. It's very well structured.
Yeah, and, dude, I do think... earlier we were talking about Cat before we had started this recording, and I mean, granted, this movie doesn't have the extraordinarily large cast.
No,
but I do think Kat is a really interesting character in this, who's maybe not given the most to do. But she has a really great moment that I just want to spotlight, where when Guillermo accuses her of having sex with Jack Quaid, she's like, "Ew!"
Yeah, fair enough, girl. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Not the real Jack Quaid. Jack, if you're listening, I would have sex with you in a heartbeat. But Jack Quaid's character here.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, like that. And dude, looking at like Sophie Thatcher though, and looking at her character, like the makeup styling on Sophie Thatcher is done perfectly. I mean, she looks
it's
like
absolutely stunning.
yeah, like dude, she looks like one of those generate a AI girlfriend with the huge gazongas
I thought
and
like
the clean sheen to her hair. Like she looks too perfect.
yeah, I was thinking like 50s pinup almost of like the look of the housewife.
Yeah. It's something about the way her hair is styled. I think that really harkens back to like that 1950s imagery, and it's like she is such a impossible conception of beauty that no wonder this other woman in the room is like, dude, what the fuck?
Right. How could you compete? Because Kat is essentially a kind of like a mistress for Sergei, and yeah, how could you compete with this perfectly devoted sex bot, right?
Yeah.
And we also see, for instance, Eli, who is our gay human character, and Patrick, who is his gay sex bot. They are in what would essentially be a long-term sex bot relationship. That it's actually kind of mentioned that it's odd that Eli has kept this older model bot for so long, because he seems to like this one. And we learn later that Patrick has puzzled out that he's a robot over time. And the two then kind of break down and say, like, we actually do love each other. But there's still a very big question mark hanging over that of, like, is Patrick genuinely, does he love Eli? And the movie seems to imply yes, because at the end, of course, he remembers after the factory reset that he actually did love Eli instead of Josh.
He Shakespeare's himself.
Right.
He Romeo and Juliet's
Yes.
upon finding out that he had loved Eli so intensely, he kills himself.
Yes. But also, he is owned by Eli. Like, this is not
He is quite literally property.
this is not an equal relationship. So it could be kind of a Stockholm syndrome thing of like, you don't have a choice. And we also see as well that when you imprint sort of a sex bot on you, I believe it's called love lock, they are kind of forced, their memories are generated to love that person. It sort of meets their qualifications for...
They get this ridiculous meet cute story.
Right.
And,
that is selected from a list we learn.
Yeah, and it's hilarious how they do this in the movie, because we get to see how Guillermo met Patrick at like the very beginning of the movie. Like, he recounts this really ridiculous story about how they were love at first sight when Patrick steps on his T-Rex tail at this party. And then later on, after Jack Quaid does the factory reset, we get that exact same meet cute, except it's just been swapped out for Jack Quaid instead of Guillermo, and it's like,
it's a little creepy. Yeah, it's solid. And I like as well that it opens on Iris's meet cute with Josh, that they met because Josh like bumped a bunch of oranges off the stand in a grocery store, like the stereotypical sitcom rom-com plot.
Yeah, like that feels very, very like kitschy romantic comedy.
Yeah. And we learned as well that he did select it off a list, that he just like, screw it, this is what I choose, which is fascinating to show the way that like it's a metaphor, you see, for the way that like some characters care more deeply about the relationship than others. That for Iris it's everything, but for Josh it's meh. That this is a dysfunctional relationship, not just between two sex bots, but or sex bot and person, but between two people. And that Eli and Patrick, at least on the surface, are a solid relationship. That they do seem to care about each other as people, even though one of them is a robot who has no choice in the matter.
Yeah, and again, I think they do a really good job of just narratively conveying that disconnect in how the two feel, because it is such a prolonged moment for Iris, where, dude, that's like the first 5 minutes of this movie is basically dedicated to that scene. We have a lot of her inner monologue about it. But then when we get to Jack Quaid's flashback, it's him looking at like the spinning Mac beach ball, and then like it's a smash cut to his like disgusting O face and like him falling over.
It is unfortunate, yeah. And I do actually think they did some color grading on both of those. His scene does seem drained of color, whereas hers is much more vibrant.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely had a far more like dreamlike atmosphere, which I thought was very apropos.
Agreed.
I mean, part of me kind of wishes they maybe kept up the aesthetic like a little further along into the movie, but
the visuals though do sell it very well.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot
Shot
of
framing.
Yeah, there's some exceptionally good framing.
Oh, the blocking.
Yeah, I loved the moment at the very end where Josh basically he has her shoot herself in the head. It turns out it's just like the Wi-Fi router. It doesn't matter because this guy's incompetent and didn't bother to research it.
It's an incredible shot where you see her face, her hair blowing in slow motion, and the bullet entering her head,
entering her Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because it's like this blue gel that gets blown out with it. It's very visually striking.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But then we learn, of course, that that's just the Wi-Fi router. That's not where the actual data is stored. So, and the data is stored kind of in her stomach area. And there's an amazing shot of him pointing the gun like directly at where her uterus would be. That's very good. And then when she kills him, he falls down into a pose where he's essentially cuddling her, which I thought was very good as well. That it's only in death that this guy is even remotely a competent boyfriend.
Oh God.
Yeah. Also, I love literally screwing him to death with a corkscrew. That was quite good.
Yeah, and that is paid off. Like, it's set up rather nicely throughout the movie. They are using the corkscrew to open up several bottles of wine. And then, when it finally gets plugged into Jack Quaid's skull, you're like, hell yeah!
Oh, yeah, because you are not rooting for him by, like, minute 3. This guy's awful, but...
I mean, look, just one small, I guess, criticism. Not really a criticism. Look, Sophie Thatcher, just keep on doing you. Like, honestly, she's 3 for 3 at the moment.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. Just her gait, the way she changes her walking for her more dreamlike sequences from the beginning of the movie to the end, when she like turns up or down her intelligence, the way she changes her motion is incredible. She does a very good job of appearing robotic while also seeming natural, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I have nothing else to add. Like, she just, sorry, if this movie does not work, I think, with any other actress. However, I would like to see Jack Quaid branch out a little bit.
I agree to some degree.
Like,
I think this is too similar a performance to a few of his others, but it's hard to tell if that's his fault or if he's just been typecast.
Like, I suppose when I say that, like obviously I don't care what roles this guy takes on because it's a fun role.
And he's good at this,
like he nails it every time. But I kind of feel like Huey from The Boys, his performance here, and then what he did in like Scream 5, they've all kind of started to blur together a little bit. Mm-hmm. I want to see him do something like really, really weird. Like, he needs to play like a weird fashion designer in whatever movie he's in next, or like he's got a like I don't know, maybe he's in a biopic where, I mean, dude, what historical figure would you like to see this guy play?
Ooh, I feel like his real calling is playing the default 20-something white male video game character in like any movie adaptation.
Oh yeah,
he's the perfect figure. Where again, my brain just looks at him. He's like, yes, generic white guy. But again, he is definitely above.
He is John Halo.
Yeah, he has the perfect like everyman look despite being very hot.
Yeah,
it is incredible.
He used to play a Space Marine.
Yes, I agree.
Done.
Perfect. Yeah.
Done. Jack Quaid, Space Marine.
Space Marine.
Yeah.
It is fascinating to see. And I agree that his performance is very good here, but it is similar to what we've seen. Most of the performances are at least good, with the possible exception of Sergey, who feels maybe a bit too over the top.
So over the top, but I love Sergey every time.
A very dirty business.
He's the Russian guy. Yes. No, he's a very dirty business, which is funny because he's revealed to be a Assad oligarch in this film.
It was so funny. I'm still debating if I think, basically, this guy's obsessed with Stalin, and Stalin's birthday is literally his phone passcode and his safe passcode. But I'm still trying to figure out if I think that's just a very funny comedic thing, or if it's intended to be playing into the themes of control, of like this awful person who like dominated the Russian people, but who's like loved because they didn't really have a choice. I'm still trying to figure out which one it's supposed to be, and I'm not sure.
Wow, you just blew my mind. You know what? That's canon. That's my head canon. I also think it's
just a funny
symbolism
Russian man
for
like
how he
Stalin.
secretly has a Stalin goon cave.
I would believe that. Frankly, I don't think that's even like subtext in this movie. I think
Yeah,
that's just text.
I think had they reached behind the giant pile of money in the safe, they would have found a switch that would have opened up the goon cave.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is almost offensively Russian, the way that they play into this guy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, granted, sorry, Russia, you could maybe take one for the team, but I agree with you.
It is very funny. Although I will say they did a good job with his essentially assault of Iris. Because that's the good question there, right? Of like, she's not...
Oh, yeah. He's really funny until he's not. And
Well, he's
that's
creepy too. He's intimidating.
Yeah.
But he does essentially assault her. But that's also playing into the themes of the control, right? Of like, basically, if he had factory reset her and put his face in the love lock, does that make it consensual? Because then she would have been in love with him, right? The only difference here is that she's already love locked on somebody else. Because we see that you can switch. Like, Patrick is factory reset by Josh, and then reset from being in love with Eli to being in love with Josh.
I feel like this is starting to get into like Dred v. Scott territory, where we need to have a discussion about like, what is consciousness?
Right.
And then if we can prove that this thing has consciousness, which, you know, I'm just going to say, I would say, yeah, she probably does have a level of sentience in this movie that makes her at least on par with humans, just from what I've observed in this film.
By the end of the movie, I definitely think she does, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially by the end. Like, I feel like, oh, man, Zach, this question is, dude, we need to watch the Animatrix again.
Yeah, that is a good one, yeah. Or the Measure of a Man, Star Trek Next Generation episode,
perfect.
season 2 episode something, I forgot.
Perfect.
But yeah, and this does a fairly solid job of engaging with that theme. And we also learned that there is a group of people who are like robot abolitionists, essentially, that do want robots to have personal freedom, because she is helped by one of them at the end, one of the robot company
one of the techs
operators. Yeah,
really bails her out.
yeah.
It's
After
like a
she
really
saves him from
solid
getting terminated
bro.
by Patrick.
Yeah. And, I mean, speaking of which, for like 20 minutes, this is the best Terminator movie.
Oh, absolutely. They turn the aggression on Patrick way up, and his ethical like considerations are essentially zero because he's programmed. So they just set him out. They even they have him kill a cop and then put on the cop's uniform.
Yeah, he's wearing the T2 Robert Patrick outfit as the police officer
Oh,
chasing after her.
Patrick.
With the
Maybe
clock.
that's where they got it. Robert Patrick.
Oh my god. That's exactly where they got that.
That is good, yeah.
Holy shit, my mind is blown.
And Terminator 1 had a lot of influence from Westworld. It all comes full circle.
Well, suffice to say, Companion does a lot more right than it does wrong.
Absolutely.
Just to echo some of my prior sentiments, I don't think this is a IMAX viewing, but, you know, Zach, do you think this is worth watching in a theater?
Yes, I mean, I will say that I like theater viewing in general, as evidenced by the fact that I am currently on a podcast debating movies. I think that is a 100% Venn diagram. But part of the theater advantage is that it forces you to sit down and consider the themes of the movie, which is why I think sci-fi is a very good fit for theater viewing, as is horror, because horror is very experiential. Sci-fi, the advantage is actually just the lack of anything else to do. So the quiet moments where you're supposed to think about the themes have to land because you can't be on your phone during the boring bits. And horror weirdly also is very good for theaters because the experience is much more loud. It's much more in your face.
I mean, it's visceral.
You can't run, yeah.
Yeah.
And so strangely, a sci-fi horror combo works very well in the theater. It's a very fun theater experience, especially if you book a Disney vacation or go to a beachfront hotel to watch this at a theater there.
That's right, Zach. I mean, after eating all this popcorn and recording all these podcasts, I can't help but think that I need to treat myself to a nice sandals vacation.
Agreed. And there's no downside to going to the theater except spending thousands of dollars on a sandals vacation.
You know, that's a really good point, Zach. It almost makes one want to have a family just to take them on a beach's vacation.
Right, I agree, yes. So, yeah, you can have the children one place, and then you bring the children to the other.
I mean, that's expressly why I intend to have children.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I've I have an ova that I'm intending to fertilize, and I'm going to grow several children in a vat outside.
That feels like there's some themes of control going on here.
Well, you say that, but you haven't seen the vacation package I booked.
Oh, you've got a good point there.
Yeah.
But no, I absolutely think this is
Look,
a good theater
I
movie.
will not have you slander my toaster. We're going to create a welcoming environment for our children,
Perfect, yeah.
and
The real message of this podcast is to go stick your dick in a toaster.
yeah, the real message is you're fired, much like my member after I stuck it.
Yes.
In
Or
my
the
toaster.
hand of
Yeah.
our companion after she is forced to
yeah.
hold her hand over a candle in a very
Yeah,
uncomfortable
that was
scene.
that scene was wild. That was oh god.
Yeah, and the text mentioned as well that like some people just torture their companions in the basement.
Yeah, that's some real solid snack on it horror, and think about it for later. You know, the fact that there are people who are 100% doing like jigsaw games in their basement with these things.
And that's a piece we've
That's
not,
fucked up.
Yeah, that's a piece we've not mentioned as much because you're more of our horror aficionado between the two of us. So where does this fit in like horror movies today? And also what pieces of the horror do you think land really well?
I mean, as far as companion goes in the modern horror continuum, it is definitely part of a more fresh wave of horror movies that I think have really been focusing on a lot of anxieties women face today, which again, Zach, for obvious reasons, I'm not sure you and I are 100% qualified to speak on this, but this very much falls in line with Immaculate last year, with The First Omen, with Alien Romulus. I'm not sure Apartment 7A made that much of a splash, but that's another movie that's really focusing in on the I mean, it's a prequel to Rosemary's Baby. You know, the connection between that movie and as a reaction to like sexism in the 1970s, I think is very palpable, and that still stands by today. And I think, you know, what's nice about Companion is that all that is very present, but it is still a very enjoyable movie, and I feel like it's got some fuck yeah to it, you know? Like, this is not going to leave you walking out the theater feeling really depressed. I mean, this is good for her horror, you know, which I think is kind of nice. It's a relief to watch. It's definitely entertaining. And I mean, as far as whether or not this is a horror movie, I mean, it's always it's a stupid conversation. I think it's based on like a lot of conjecture. Like, what is the difference between a thriller versus horror? Yeah. I mean, I guess for someone like my parents, they would ask, well, does someone get disemboweled in it? Are people like getting hacked up? I mean, that would probably...
No, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I feel like this is a really accessible horror film.
Yeah, that's true.
That won't leave you like, you know, you won't need to change your underwear after this.
Yeah, it doesn't shy away from committing horrible acts, but there is not a ton of like gore. Most of the horror comes from the thematic elements, actually, which I think is very clever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't have tons to add on this movie.
Yeah, and
I mean, I've said my piece about it. It's just really well done. I'm just curious to see what its box office legs will be like, especially...
I agree.
Like, I almost think this would have been a better Valentine's Day release, which is funny because we have Captain America, Brave New World coming out on Valentine's Day.
There's also a couple of other horror movies coming out around Valentine's Day, which may be why they bumped it up to try and avoid...
Yeah, because there was Heart Eyes, which is that real, like, slasher kill. Which, I mean, granted, I would like to go see that, but I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. There's much going on in my life, and sadly, I can't go to the cinema as much as I would like. But, you know, I hear that's supposed to be a lot of fun. I'm just surprised that it didn't have more of a marketing push, because I had no idea it was really coming out until very recently.
Yeah. And I think this is a good Valentine's Day movie, too. So it may just be to get that early box office opening and then try and get a secondary boost when Valentine's Day hits. So, which I think it probably will.
Zach, the real horror movie is me dying of popcorn while I record this podcast.
It's really to put you in the frame of mind, the fear.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I am experiencing popcorn anxiety right now.
But no, this is not a particularly gory horror movie. It's mostly an atmospheric horror movie, and it does feel very oppressive. It does feel very disconcerting, but it isn't The goriest moment is probably when Iris wanders up after having killed Sergei, which even plays to the themes because she's drenched in his blood, and you actually mentioned the kind of menarche themes that surround that.
Yeah, it's certainly. I think
Menarche,
you can
not
make like a
menarche.
very Freudian reading of that. That
Right.
she has come of age once the blood has let.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but yeah, it's still a very gruesome stabbing, and they
Yeah.
cut away from it at first, but then they flash back to it.
Right.
And yeah, they're not really holding back in that scene.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. It's visceral. So altogether, I do think this earned its R rating, but it's probably and granted, I've always been a big proponent of the idea that nothing ever needs to be too gory, except when it needs to be. And this didn't need to be like dude, if this was Final Destination, and if they skimped out on the blood and guts, I would have been kind of pissed off. But like, yeah, I think this used its violence in a really smart way.
I agree. Yeah, it never gets too excessive, but it also is not afraid to show the grim nature of the situation. Like when she's burning off her hand, it's never so uncomfortable that you're actively turning away from it, but it does force you to sit there and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it forces you to debate the humanity of this character, and I think that's actually a really interesting thing they do by removing the blood and the guts from the occasion, or you know, from the equation when she is burning her arm in that scene. It makes you perceive her humanity differently, and I feel like it wasn't until I saw the tear coming down from her eye that I was like very thoroughly reminded that like this is basically a real person. What's happening here is horrifying.
And sci-fi is uniquely suited to do so. As evidence, they do a great effect. One of the few times they really use a lot of special effect work on this is her eyes when she's in kind of sleep mode, essentially. Not sleeping with mode, sleep like shutdown mode. Her eyes essentially turn white. They don't technically roll back in her head. They're just completely
It's a very
void.
disturbing piece of body horror.
Yeah,
that I feel like really works.
Yeah, and they do use it a lot in the movie, but it's also, again, it plays into the central themes where like she's not choosing to do this, but it also looks very creepy in a very good way.
Well, there's the reason why it's on the poster.
Yeah, because it's very effective. Yeah, and I think that's a good metaphor summation for the movie in general. Is like it doesn't have a lot to work with, but it knows what it is. Every piece is working to support the overall whole, with the exception of the sometimes insane plot. I loved the weird hoops you have to jump through to make some of the plot make sense. Like, not only do Josh and Kat not know each other very well, their immediate plan is just not going to work. But my favorite part is still that when Eli is like, okay, you used me as an alibi, his instant reaction is not, I'm going to go call the cops. It's, okay, me and my boyfriend are 100% on board. Give me the gun. Let's shoot some robots.
Now, I will say, I do agree with you. However, I have never seen $12 million in person.
That's fair. It might do something to your lizard brain.
It would totally do something to my lizard brain. I would turn into the biggest asshole in no time flat. I mean, you would take 2 looks at me and I would have, oh God, yeah, it would be like I think I would have to order like a solid gold AK-47. Yeah.
I feel like
would
you should,
turn
you
into
should
a
really
Iraqi
spring
dictator
for the
like
AR-15. Like,
yeah, fair enough.
you can afford the good shit.
Fair enough.
But I mean, yeah, we also see I like that the money changes based on who's talking, because Josh obviously uses Iris to get access to this money. But when they're in the room, the way we learn that Patrick is a robot is that Eli is arguing that they should split it 4 ways because it's him, Kat,
And Patrick.
Josh, and Patrick. But everybody else is like 3 ways, dude. Like, Patrick's a robot.
He's not a person.
But Eli seems to think he is. Although, to be fair, he might just be wanting...
He has some insane
$6 billion,
cognitive dissonance,
yeah.
which, I mean, look, I don't want to get too political, but yeah, I mean, you know, in the wake of 2024, yeah, that's a thing, man. It's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, maybe it's arguing that the male robots are still felt as more personable or human, but that's not particularly well examined in the movie if that's the case, because I don't really think that's true after that scene. I think it's more trying to play into that central theme of like whether or not these are people than any gendered system.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just one of the maybe compelling questions that this movie doesn't entirely answer. And speaking of questions left unanswered, Zach, do you think this needs a sequel? And I suppose if that answer is yes, it's fine if it's no. But if that answer is yes, where would you like to see that ending go?
Yeah, so my answer is no, I don't think it needs a sequel. I like that the open-ended nature of this, it plays completely in a theme, right? That the goal of this is ultimately self-actualization for Iris, because the ending of the movie is we see her driving a car with another Terminator reference. She's removed the rest of her hand and is now fully mechanical on that part. But she sees another version of herself, like another model, Iris model, whatever her model number is, in a car with a different guy. And I think that's the perfect ending, to show that she is now free. She's the one driving the car, something she literally couldn't do earlier, and looking at someone in the passenger seat of a different one, of a different relationship. I think that's a perfect ending for this character. You could theoretically take it in a direction, but I don't see that it wouldn't remove some of the narrative closure of this particular movie. I don't think opening this up again would allow you to take it that way.
Well, I think that was a very thought out and intelligent question, response to my question, which is why I'm going to give you a very stupid response to that question.
Beautiful, yes.
I want Companion 2 Electric Boogaloo, and I want it to be Robot Iris fighting against a robot Jack Quaid who gets his consciousness put into a companion who also becomes sentient, but he wants revenge, and he clones an army of himself, and they have to fight. They have to fight really hard.
You have unlocked the perfect, terrifying horror movie, which is that you order a sexbot guy, and the sexbot gets to you, and it's an incel sexbot. Like, it's just a sexbot with an incel programming. That is the ultimate horror, and I think you have successfully failed. You found it. That's the peak.
Yes.
Hollywood, please.
Yes.
Please.
And then the ending reveals it's just a VR.
It's
just a VR. Yeah.
Beautiful.
What a twist, baby.
Magnifique.
What a twist. But hey, speaking of a twist, I would like to give you guys a sneak peek at our next episode. It's going to be a collab between Movies on Fire and my other pod, The Bonus Situation, featuring the talents of my pal Boomer. And Zach, can you remind me which movie we're going to be taking a look at again?
We're going to be seeing The Monkey.
The Monkey! Monkey Business.
Yes.
Monkey Business. We'll actually be able to bring that review to you about a week early, courtesy of Cinemark, but
Yes, thank you, Cinemark.
2 weeks after all the other trades have published.
Yes, but unfortunately, nobody sponsors us because why would we?
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Movies on Fire.
Movies on Fire. Movies on Fire.